We're back again in GT Cup Europe here in the third meeting of the season at Hockenheim in Germany. This 4.574 kilometer circuit, or 2.842 miles in old money, will host 22 cars for another 50 minutes of racing. We've just about recovered from a very dramatic race yesterday that certainly flipped all three championships on its head, with multiple dramas for many championship contenders. We've had a lot of points changing hands in all three categories. We'll keep you abreast of that as we go along. It's Chris Stevens and George Morgan in the commentary box for race 2 here this afternoon. George, 10 minutes ago, we'd have said, oh, definitely want some wet tyres on that car. 5 minutes ago, you'd have thought, oh, not so sure. And now we're looking at it thinking, if you're not on slicks, you've made the wrong call.
Well, I can say for one thing, I can say one thing for sure. You might as well throw up any script, rip it up, and chuck it in the bin, because we have just witnessed, a dozen change conditions in the past hour or so. Certainly in the last 2 to 3 hours anyway, because we witnessed a huge deluge, a downpour through the course of midday that actually had huge implications on the International GT Open that we've just concluded here at Hockenheimring. But now, here in this case, we have got the sun beaming out across this circuit. And as you can see, all the rainwater that we had that soaked the entirety of this Hockenheimring circuit, it is now all dissipated. And as you can see already, cars making their way through the pit lane. Session still declared wet, however, so the lights still have to be on.
And it does mean that the wet tyres are available should they need them, but looking at it right now,
do you really need them?
No, this has got to be slick territory, but it just goes to show how quickly it can change around here, because I'm not joking, 10 minutes ago it was soaking out there, but it dries up so quickly around here, and the rain is like a faucet. Just turn it on for 5 minutes, it soaks up everything. Incredibly intense downpour, and then just stops again, and the sun comes out, and you need sunglasses, umbrellas, jackets and short sleeves this weekend.
Certainly do. It's the Myrtel car, the 82, starts to park up. Mauro Trentin behind the wheel of that one. Our pole sitters also up there, Pietro Armani, Simone Patrinicola. Well, we're waiting for Armani at the moment, but Patrinicola parking up to the right side of our screen right now. And
that car, I erroneously mentioned the 10-place grid penalty as. It does still have that, but the penalty applies to the driver, and so that will be applied the next time Luca Di Marchi takes the start, which will be next time out in Paul Ricard. But because it's Simone Patrinicola starting the car this weekend, the penalty does not apply just yet. So that number 80 Moto car will still start on the front row of the grid, and I'm delighted to say that we do have the full complement of 22 cars, because the Hans Weiss Motorsport team, although that number 7 Berger's Motorsport Porsche of Laura van den Hengel and Paul Meyer didn't take part in qualifying, they have been able to get it ready for the race. We've seen it making its way onto the track for its reconnaissance laps, and so we will have the full 22 car field. And hope they just see it at the back of the field there. Hopefully an opportunity for Laura van den Hengel to get some redemption after a horrific crash yesterday. Yeah, she's been in the wars a little bit, of course, this season. We look back at Portimao. I mean, that ultimately was not even her fault. It was an innocent bystander situation. And it has been, a tricky start to the weekend. But she can come back now and has every chance. And the great thing about being in this position, I'm sure she would have loved to have taken part in qualifying, but at this stage, really, the only way is up here right now, with her being on 22nd place on the grid. Here is our championship leaders, of course, Ian Rodriguez and, of course, Luca Franca, representing the Fimes team, who are now returning again. Remember, in silver class as well. 3 classes represented in this championship as of the start of this season back at Portimao, and they'll be sitting on the second row, of course, just behind Pietro Armani, with Simone Patrinicola on the other side on the front row. They'll be joined also by Fabio Babini, who's only just come off the back of an immensely busy race that they experienced hardship in, because, of course, Tsunami RT were handed a penalty after some issues earlier on. So Fabio Babini will be hoping to right the wrong. Pietro Armani now making his way out onto the track now, has taken his opening grid spot at the top. Pole position for Pietro Armani, who's made his way out of single-seaters
into Porsche racing now over the last 2 years and is really flourishing. Simone Patrinicola here for Myrtel as well, front row for him, and he's looking for a big run in towards turn one. Luca De Marchi will be taking over, and this is our championship leader at the moment. Luca Franco taking the opening stint, and of course he'll hand over to Ian Rodriguez when the driver change window opens up.
And a combination that is enjoying a very healthy lead in the championship at the moment after they took victory yesterday. But dramas for their nearest title rivals at ZRS Motorsport Burgers and at Q1 Track Racing as well, with the Laura van den Hengel incident that we were alluding to, wiping out Goncalo Fernandez, which is the nearest, the second nearest silver class rival as well to the Fimes team. We saw a glimpse of the top two in Pro-Am there, Fabio Babini and Peter Furter. Dieter Streps, the leader of the AM category, and they're still enjoying the lead in the AM championship there as well after a second place finish. It was absolutely nose to tail between himself and H. De Mello yesterday at the checkered flag. Let's take a look back at what happened yesterday. Paul Meyer was the man leading the field ahead of the Fimes team, but contact between Luca De Marchi and Nicolas Salins and Antoine Berberic at the first corner. That handed the Myrtel car a 10-place grid penalty for next time out in Paul Ricard, but it was Berberic after his best qualifying performance who was left with a puncture. Paul Meyer handed over to Laura van den Hengel in the Pro-Am fight. This was the moment that Luca Franca took the lead away from Nico van Dierendonk. But this was the moment it all came undone for Laura van den Hengel and the Burgers Motorsport team, wiping out Goncalo Fernandez as well. Battles continued further down as the pro runners made their way through the AM field. Contact between the top two in the AM category, though, between the GDL and Q1 Track Racing cars. But it was victory once again for Luca Franca and Ian Rodriguez at the head of the field. Myrtel Motorsports number 83 crew picking up their first podium. Antoine Berberic picking up a podium after a puncture on the first lap. An extraordinary drive from the youngster. This is what it means for the championship. 2.5 wins worth of points now, the advantage for the Fames team over Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani, that's starting on pole position from the ZRS Motorsport crew. Antoine Berberic moving up to 5th position in the championship after his second consecutive podium finish. We now move on to race 2. The 3-minute board is out. Here is how they line up for the next 50 minutes of racing. Pietro Armani starts the ZRS Motorsport Porsche ahead of Simone Patrinicola in the number 80 Ferrari 296 challenge car on the front row of the grid. Luca Franca starts the championship leading Fimes team Porsche ahead of the Pro-Am pole sitter Fabio Babini for Tsunami Racing Team. Peter Furter is the top bronze driver in the Pro-Am order. He starts 5th in the LMR run car ahead of his teammate Dieter Streps in the AM leading 911 car. On the 4th row of the grid, Antoine Berberic, after 2 podium finishes, he starts ahead of Matteo Levisi, who was also on the podium yesterday. 2 Myrtel Motorsport cars there. On the 5th row of the grid, Fernando Navarrete in the number 19 Ferrari starts ahead of Nicolas Salins in the Q1 Track Racing Porsche that was wiped out at the start yesterday. Goncalo Fernandez in that repaired Q1 Track Racing car starts 11th ahead of Franville Bugliotti. He made contact with Nico van Dierendonk in their AM lead battle yesterday. 13th goes to H. De Mello, yesterday's race winner in the category, ahead of Nico van Dierendonk, one of the Q1 team managers. Cosimo Papi was on the AM podium yesterday for Ebby Motors. He starts 15th, ahead of Mauro Trentin in 82. Then it's Mark Speakervast for SP Racing, starting ahead of the other SP Racing Porsche, Riccardo Romagnoli. Giacomo Giuberia in the 67 GDL car, running solo ahead of Gianluca Giorgi in the Ebby Motors car. Then it's Paolo Prespatino from ZRS Motorsports, and then Laura van den Hengel will line up at the back of the grid after that car was still being repaired during qualifying. Car's now on the formation lap. 50 minutes of racing to come. The sun now shining. It's a completely different Hockenheim to what we had 30 minutes ago. Much to the relief of many other drivers, I'm sure. But we have a tight battle at the head of the field. ZRS Motorsport really needing to put one over Fime's team in this race to get their championship back on track.
Yeah, they'll be looking for exactly that, Chris, but equally there's a huge chance here for some Ferrari machinery here as well to take their first win this year. It's been really tough, I think, through the course of this championship fight. Everything has really gone Porsche's way, really, in many ways. So obviously, going through the course of the season, Fime's team have been the headliners, the only team to take multiple race wins through the course of this campaign, with a win at least every round so far, and they're looking to do the double here once again, starting from the second row of the grid. But obviously, they're going to be serving some pretty heavy handicaps, some heavy handicaps as well for GTL Racing, H. de Mello, after the incredible class victory for him, and equally the same for Leandro Martins, Dieter Schweppes as well. But elsewhere, can include Tsunami RT. They'll be branded with 15 seconds. SP, not to mention with Riccardo Ragnagnoli and Luca Maria Attianesi. But it's going to be an all-fighting affair with the front-end order. Pietro Armani with a great chance to register a second win of the season. But all eyes have to be on the Ferrari pairing as well, further down, that have had also their own fair share of bad luck. That's Matteo Lovisi and Davide Larini, who came so close as well yesterday, coming second. Now, certainly establishing their first podium of the championship so far after two very tricky first two rounds.
And there is a 10-place penalty for Laura van den Hengel, but I should imagine that is, well, I get settled even though she didn't qualify the car. They're also taking 10 seconds of handicap. The big hitters there really are the 911 LMR car, the AM championship leader, and the car that won in AM yesterday, H. de Mello, 20 seconds for them as well. So could be all shifting around out there. But we'll keep an eye on that as the race progresses. The driver change window opens 21 minutes into the race. Once again in GT Cup Europe, it's Porsche v Ferrari on the front row of the grid. The 296 Challenge meeting the Porsche Cup car. It was Antoine Burbrick representing Ferrari on the front row of the grid yesterday. Today it's Simone Patrinicola, another team that really needs to get their championship hopes back on track. They were considered one of the favourites going into the season. Let's see if they can take the challenge over the course of the next 15 minutes of racing as the red lights turn green. We're racing in Hockenheim. Very even start from the front row of the grid, but the Ferrari using that extra power and just being able to challenge wet bits of track out there that catches out many of the drivers. Spin for the championship leader. Luca Franca facing the wrong way. He does a perfect 360 though. Another of the Porsches goes round. I think that might have been H. de Mello.
Yeah, the 44 of H. de Mello is indeed round. The man from San Marino, unfortunately, or the team from San Marino, finding themselves all shapes coming out of the first corner. And indeed the same can be said for championship leader Luca Franca, who finds himself around Patrinicola, now in pursuit of the race leader. Huge crash further back as well. That's Van Dierendonk's car that already saw high drama towards the end. We got a three-wide affair on the run down. Peter Furter coming from the clouds and taking the lead of the race here, coming out of turn 6, but runs wide. And now on the return, here comes Simone Patrinicola, looking to try and retake that race lead. Again, they're three wide on the run through towards turn 8, but it's Simone Patrinicola who leads the way here at Hockenheimring in race 2.
An extraordinary start, unbelievable stuff as Furter still trying to take second place away. The two LMR cars now side by side. It's just the 56 that leads the Team Bosses car. In 911, we saw further dramas out of turn 4, one of the SP cars and one of the other GDL cars having to take avoiding action, as again the LMR cars are side by side with Dieter Schweppes trying to come around the outside. He takes third position away, getting very tight there with Fabio Babini on the inside of the Sachs curve, but it's Patrinicola who leads Pietro Armani, our pole sitter, at the front of the field. Extraordinary action once again. That looked like the Dieter Schweppes car going very wide, and Fabio Babini trying to come through.
And also big gains for Laura van den Hengel after the start as well. She's on the tail of Gianluca Giorgi. She started 22nd on the grid. She's already up to 17th, so has made some really strong place gains. Granted, of course, there was a lot of chaos at the start, but navigating her way through, especially after what happened yesterday. Very strong getaway. And speaking of strong getaways, here comes Matteo Lovisi up the inside as well. Came very close to the car ahead, the Porsche ahead of the 911 of Dieter Schweppes. It's 4th place. Now, as I see it, I think actually it might be 5th here for Lavisi as they pirouette their way through this next left-hander. But Lavisi, either way, getting past Schweppes, Lavisi up to 5th, Babini up to 3rd.
And Luca Franca, after that spin at the first corner, crucially still circulating in 14th position. Keep an eye on him as the stint unfolds side by side here with Matteo Lavisi on the inside there of Dieter Schweppes at the hairpin. The previous generation 418. Smoke in the rear, though. Coming out of the hairpin, one of the Porsches moving slowly. Some debris has been deposited. It looks like that was one of the Ebby Motors car that was emitting the smoke. The number 23 machine coming up against Riccardo Romagnoli in the 43 SB Racing Porsche, potentially. Some debris coming off of Antoine Berbrick's Ferrari 296 Challenge off the front left corner.
Franken out to 11th as a consequence of that moment as well. And coming into this now, Laura van den Engel on the back of Romagnoli in that 43 that came into realms of a spin coming out of turn 6. It was all chaos again on the exit coming out of the plus 90-degree right-hander. But they're still now making their way around on track. There is our championship leader recovering after that moment, Luca Franca. We'll be hoping that he can put that behind him and just focus on what's ahead. There's still a long way to go until the driver change window, 17 minutes and 25, so he can launch a recovery. He'll need one in order to now give themselves a chance of perhaps laying claim to further points. Though, while they have taken 3 wins this season, their only appearances on the podium, in fact, their only appearances outside of 4 points they've accrued in race 2 at Portimao have been victories. They have not managed anything else inside the points finishes so far.
Babini up to 2nd place ahead of Pietro Armani. Tsunami Racing Team moving past the pole, sitting ZRS Motorsports car. We'll see picture-in-picture a replay of the start. And it was Patrick Nicola who got a great launch.
Contact.
Plenty of drivers were taken to the escape road. There's the spin for Franca. You think he was pitched into it?
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact there with Peter Furter. Not quite sure what happened, though, to H. de Mello. We're riding on board now with the 91. This is the Fames driver.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, contact with Peter Furter through turn 1, that is. So the stewards might take a look at that. And he was then pivoted round. And then we saw the coming together once again further back with Nicholas van Dierendonk. A few cars having to take evasive action onto the grass on the escape out of turn 3, but they all recover vaguely out on track. Lavisi now jumping Furter into 4th now, so the silver cars starting to converge to the front.
Green and yellow car 91 there of Luca Franca, now up to 11th position and looking at the back of Nicola Salen's Q1 Track Racing car. It's been a good day so far for Q1 over at Zandvoort. They had a double podium finish in the Carrera Cup Benelux race. Not so much a good start for their 57 car, but the rest of them still running relatively competitively in this race. Franca on a recovery drive now as there's Berbrick. That front left damage getting worse. It was the headlight that popped out earlier on, but seemingly more damage being done to the front of that 296 Challenge.
Yeah, currently routed down in 12th and 1.9 away from Franca at this stage, and Franca still working his way through the order. He's on the back of Salins as we saw earlier on. Fanvale Bugliotti with Goncalo Fernandez for company. They also had a hefty repair to make after what happened in the race yesterday, but have seemingly found their feet once again as Patrick Nicola launches 4.1 ahead as now. We've seen, Salins has got a problem. We got a problem here. Salins dropping down through the field. I'm not quite sure what's occurred, but the team managers, anyway, regardless of car 56, that's Peter Furter, report to race control immediately. I can only imagine that was due to the contact with Luca Franca at the start of the race.
The swap again between the two LMR cars with Dieter Schweppes moving past Peter Furter for 5th position overall. We've got an onboard here, and this is what's happened to Nicola Salins. That's why he's tumbled down the timing order, because Luca Franca has pitched him into a spin. So not only is he now on the recovery drive, I think he'll likely be slapped with a penalty for that contact.
Yeah, so the driver that upturned Franca is being investigated by race control. I'm sure it won't be too long now before Franca himself is being asked to or having his team manager report to race control. We would, of course, give you the updates as it comes, of course, folks. But at this stage, it's still Patrick Nicola. There's Pietro Armani looking to try and close back to Babini at this stage, still within a second of one another. And we know that Armani is a very fast driver. And there you can see Matteo Lavisi also digging deep and now improving 1.3 seconds in the last lap as well, and cruising closer and closer to the back of the Porsche. Like I said, we have not had a Ferrari win so far this season. Every single race thus far has gone Porsche's way.
Just listening in on the LMR pit wall. They're 2 cars, 5th and 6th at the moment. Of course, brand new team to the championship, bringing in 2 cars, including the car that won the AM Championship last year. Laura van den Hengel on the grass, trying to get around Roman Ragnoli. They're going in towards turn 2. Looks like Ragnoli's outbraked himself slightly, and van den Hengel, remember, she started at the very back of the grid. That car did not take part in qualifying after still needing repairs from yesterday's crash. Very close here with the GDL number 33 of Franville Bugliotti on the back of Fernando Navarrete for 7th position overall. And Franville Bugliotti, one of many of the AM runners having to take handicap in this one, but one of the faster AM drivers in the field. Here comes Fernandez on the inside in the Q1 track racing car. That's a silver class car. Fernandez, the rally convert. They're side by side coming through turn 10. Just saw a glimpse of the Q1 track racing car on the outside. And in fact, you can see him in the mirror there. They're side by side heading towards turn 12. The championship leader right behind them as well, Luca Franca, trying to take advantage of that. Got a great view of the battle here as Fernandez again darts towards the inside of the Sachs curve, but there's no way through there. Coming through this tricky final sector. And you see how much it's been drying up out there because they're all over the curbing, even in some of the more slipperier parts of the racetrack where there's been some fresh asphalt laid down in recent months.
Yeah, also speaking about Goncalo Fernandez, Lars Zanin, obviously breaking the deadlock for them this season at Spa in race 1, going to victory for the first time this campaign. Be right on board with the Fames team, sprinting down through towards turn 2 and turn 3. See, it'll be the turn of Ian Rodriguez later on in the day, but Franca on that recovery mission inside the top 10 at least for now, and he'll be having company shortly as well from Anton Berberic Martini, who's only 8 tenths away and still continuing to close. As back comes now Goncalo Fernandez. Georgi moves ahead of Mauro Trentin. That's the battle for 13th. It's now around the outside comes this time Goncalo Fernandez, of course part of the silver class, looking to try and typify an AM driver at this stage, but Franca smelling blood of his own here this time around. May have fancied an attack given how frail it looked for Fernandez coming out of turn 6, but it was not on. Might be something though heading down in towards turn 9 and turn 10 as well, into the braking zone in front of the grandstand, and in he goes, Luca Franca moving into 9th place, but back on the undercut. You can just see in the rearview mirror, here comes Goncalo Fernandez. This is not over. They're side by side on the escape coming through towards Mobile 1. Who's going to come out on top? Here comes Fernandez. Can he creep it around the long way? Not quite, but they still have Sachs curve to come, and I get the feeling this battle's going to go on for quite some time. Here comes Antoine Berberic.
Down the inside into the Sachs curve, and the 18-year-old rookie is still alongside coming out to the corner, but the Porsche gets the drag out of there. Very opportunistic stuff in that rather bruised Ferrari. Bit of a black eye out there.
I was going to say aye, captain at this point, but yeah, a tricky situation.
That's when you duct tape the front headlight.
Well,
over.
I was going to say, yeah, get the eye patch out, but you know, at least there's no requirement. Obviously for headlights. So we do race during the day here in the GT Cup Europe Championship, so yeah, he's not quite one-eyed Willie at the moment. He makes his way down through towards the next right-hander at turn 2, coming out of turn 3. Berberic Martini 4 tenths away from Goncalo Fernandez in 10th. And again, got to allude to the brilliant recovery from Berberic Martini yesterday. Managed to achieve a massive P3 finish after the puncture he sustained in the opening stint of the race.
And the hilarious thing about that, he looked so miffed on the podium as well, because I think he knew he could have won that race.
It was a driver of the day performance.
Instead of being elated with the drive he put in, he was just miffed that he didn't win, really. And there is a lot of speculation about the future of Antoine Berberic. All I'll say is don't be surprised if you see him in higher class machinery before the year is out.
Well, he's putting on a good show at the moment. Wait and see what he can deliver as well later into this race. Of course, we still have 38 and 15 to run. Franville Bugliotti second in the AM class at the moment, chasing after Fernando Navarrete, representing in the Pro-Am group. He's looking to accompany Peter Furter, about a second between them at the moment as the 19 of Navarrete now digs deep, heading through Sachs Curve. Franvel Bugliotti getting closer now. Laura van den Hengel has managed to get past Romagnoli as well for 14th, so another move gained for Laura van den Hengel and Burgers Motorsports, who are looking to get prepared, ready for the driver changeover, and she'll give Paul Meyer perhaps a good opportunity here to claw back a few places as the window will open up in around about 8 minutes and 40 or so's time. But remember, they will have to serve some time through the handicap as now we watch them come through towards turn one. It's Franvel Bugliotti who took a very tight inside line and taking a wider line. Fame's team of Ian Rodriguez, Luca Franca just gesturing there with his hands, of course, to the driver that he's looking to get past. And indeed he does. 9th place soon becomes 8th place.
Yeah, that's the typical karting, stop fighting, let's get after them maneuver, which of course you ignore, because how dare you say that to me? I'm quicker than you. As Goncalo Fernandez now looks to make a move on Franvel Bugliotti down towards the hairpin. It's GDL versus Q1. How many times have we seen that in GT Cup as Luca Franca just ran a little bit wide there at the hairpin, very nearly compromised the maneuver as Bugliotti moves across. He's missing one of the stickers from his front windshield, isn't he? He's only got a 3 on there. He needs another one. That I know that sounds funny, but that is genuinely the kind of thing that you'll get pulled up for in race control, because it's all about identifying cars. Luckily, there isn't a car number 3 in this field, otherwise that would have made things very complicated. Fernandez with a great run out of turn 11 and into 12. The right-hander of the Mobile 1 curve eventually gets that move done, and so he's up into 9th position overall now.
Yeah, that number 3 is not a lucky one, that's for sure, for Franvel Bugliotti, losing out to Goncalo Fernandez now, and Fernandez now taking that 9th place, and Burbrick Martini will then be queuing up for his opportunity as well. In fact, we're riding on board with him right now, making his way around the final 2 corners here before beginning the next lap. It is still Simone Patrinicola, though, out in front, who's careered away by 5.2 seconds. Those behind. Luca Franca already on the tail once again. And Fernando Navarrete at this moment. Of course, Franca part of the silver class, taking on a Pro-Am entry here in this race at Hockenheimring. It's wheel to wheel once again, though this time further back as Burbrick Martini goes side by side here with Franvel Bugliotti inside turn 2. The better line was on offer to Franvel, at least in the initial, but of course the Ferrari will benefit of the run down through towards turn 5 as they look to encroach down towards turn 6 and opening up that Ferrari challenge power. He's going to look to try and usurp that Porsche belonging to Franvel Bugliotti. Here comes Antoine Burbrick Martini looking to the outside. They're still side by side, wheel to wheel. Also moves further up as well as Navarrete looks to go defensive against Franca. Antoine now put at bay by Franvel Bugliotti again as we ride on board. There's the contact that caused that little bit of cosmetic damage up at the front.
But also the spin for the Ebby Motors car.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that must have been on the 2nd lap, maybe. Very early in the race.
Well, we did see...
Was that Cosimo Papi, the 23?
We saw the aftermath of it. So Burbrick Martini was the one who essentially caused the spin for the Porsche that found its way round. So
10-second time penalty for Peter Furter, causing a collision. So that's the incident from the start of the race that sent Luca Franca spinning.
And we had a last warning dished out to Goncalo Fernandez as well for track limits. So there we have it. And there's confirmation on your screens as well, folks. The 56 of Peter Furter, 10-second time penalty for causing a collision. And obviously in recompense for Luca Franca, as now we have another look here from Franca, funnily enough, this time on Navarrete, coming through turn 1. And he's bringing along plenty of other folks for the ride as well. Fernandez, Vel Bugliotti, Burbrick Martini queuing up after this. Franca coming down in towards turn 2, looking to go wheel to wheel with the Ferrari, and happily moves on through as easy as you like. And certainly by the looks of it, Navarrete more than happy to oblige.
So up into 7th position now for Luca Franca, who remember may well face a penalty himself for spinning around Nicolas Salins earlier in the race as he looked to recover those places. Fernando Navarrete coming back at Luca Franca, but no serious challenge down there. It's a great gaggle of cars out there with the Q1 Track Racing number 53 just lighting up those rear Michelins coming through the hairpin. Dieter Schwebs on the back of Matteo Levisi now. Levisi was on the podium yesterday with Davide Larini.
Would like a little more, I'm sure. See whether Ferrari car. Obviously, Lavisi moving from Porsche machinery into Ferrari machinery for this season. And now with Dieter Schweppes all over his tail, who we know is a very feisty character. Incredibly fast, looking the long way around, coming through Sachs curve, just looking for an avenue to push his Porsche through. Lavisi having his wits about him, though. Moving from Federico Alrafai as a partner to then Davide Larini.
Two drivers just in completely different stages of their career, really. George, you got Matteo Lavisi, a young 19-year-old who's in his second season of GT car up against Dieter Schweppes, the 42-year-old. Oh, excuse me, 43. I'm sure he'd prefer if I said 42.
He might thank you for that. But yeah, we've got opposite ends of the spectrum in both car and, of course, career at the moment, as we now watch as the cars come together further back as well. Fernando Navarrete still blocking off this queue that includes Goncalo Fernandez. Of course, Franca now over 1.1 seconds up the road from Navarrete after his previous move, and no doubt Goncalo Fernandez is looking to get this one and done because he doesn't want to stray too far away from Luca Franca, because they are both in this essentially overall silver fight. And indeed, here comes Fernandez now, looking to get the run, and also coming into this is Franvel Bugliotti, who goes late on the brakes. Of course, part of the AM contingent. We're going to pass a Pro-Am car. Fernandez utilising a lot of the curb and on the escape manages to dodge and weave his way through past Fernando Navarrete for 8th place overall. And Franvel Bugliotti looking to join him as well. The question is, can he get past this Pro-Am up the inside? He's going to certainly give it a try, and up through turn 9. It's going to be Franvel Bugliotti in to that 9th place.
Of course, there's two bronze drivers going toe-to-toe there in the Pro-Am and Am battle between Navarrete and Bugliotti. So it's a change of 9th position overall, as Schweppes here still looks at the back of Lavisi for 4th position overall. Meanwhile, Simone Patrinicola some 6 seconds to the good now over Fabio Babini, who continues to lead the Pro-Am battle, and some 12 seconds ahead of his nearest class rival, Peter Furter. Armani still there in 2nd, and then this battle for 4th between Lavisi and Schweppes. Peter Furter in a bit of a race of his own at the moment, but with Luca Franca bearing down on him very quickly. So you see the Porsche tries the tighter line there to Schweppes. Here is our race leader, Simone Patrinicola. Out there by himself at the moment and going for his 2nd victory in 3 races with Luca De Marchi. Of course, won the Italian GT Championship together last year in the 488 Challenge Evo. And of course now stepping up to the 296 Challenge with Mertel Motorsport. Side by side here, Berberic and Cosimo Papi. So that was the car that Berberic spun round, wasn't it, at the hairpin?
Yes.
So somehow Papi's been able to close back in and well, might be seeing red there. Schweppes has made his way through on Lavisi here. Schweppes up into 4th place.
Yeah, it took a little bit of time, quite a bit of time of asking at the moment, but the key thing for Dieter Schweppes here is that he's applying and ploughing more time on Franvel Bugliotti at the moment. But of course, Schweppes will be jumping out of the car for Leandro Martins when the driver change window opens up in just under 20, well, in fact, coming into 20 seconds time. So it's certainly going to come out very soon, but you'd certainly imagine that Schweppes is going to do a majority share of this stint here, take it right to the bitter end before then Leandro Martins jumps into the car. Lavisi will also be handing over to Davide Larini. I'm sure they'll be having some discussions as to when they're going to bring his car in, but it's Patrinicola regardless at the moment. Of course, Babini will be going the long way too. Laura van den Hengel, I would imagine, looking to come in on maybe even this lap. The change is indeed on. We've got 8 minutes of this now, so could see a very busy pit lane in the not-too-distant future. Already the team's now thoroughfaring the cars through.
You called it spot on, George.
Yeah.
Laura van den Hengel and Nicolas Eilens bailing for pit lane at the
And they are the
earliest
first.
opportunity. Yes, absolutely the first to come in. So Paul Meyer, serial pole sitter of this season. In every qualifying session he's done, in as well as come the 82. Mauro Trentin handing over to Tommaso Lavati as on the inside here is Luca Franca on Peter Furter, eventually getting that move done. So that's our 6th position for Luca Franca after spinning round at the first corner. We see the driver change with Steeners long in, looking to take over from Nicholas Salins. Who else has come in? Yeah, so we've got the 11, the number 17 also in as well. Paolo Prespatino handing over to Angelo Tomaccio.
Yep, absolutely right. Tomaccio just getting himself into the car now. Get strapped in and ready to go again for the remainder of this race. There is Simone Patrinicola, no qualms. He's going to continue on this run. He has certainly put together a decent opening stint, now 6.1 ahead of Fabio Bambini after crossing the stripe. Pietro Armani further down in third, still ahead at the moment of Dieter Schweppes, who will take the majority share of this driver change stint before then coming in. Sure, with maybe a minute or mere seconds to go. Just now they fly through the first sector. Now we've got quite a crew coming in this time around. Matteo Lovisi will be hopping out. Davide Larini getting ready to jump into the car. Equally coming in, our championship leaders, Luca Franca will be swapping in for Ian Rodriguez as we ride on board with the said car right now. Change in process there at Fimes team, and also further back, Franvel Bugliotti, who's the solo driver in that car, with Burbrick Martini also flying solo as well down in 12th.
And Burbrick is in as well, and they are putting the eye patch over the headlamp.
So it will be eye captain.
Gouge out there. So in as well, SB Racing with Luca Maria Attianese taking over from Riccardo Romagnoli in 43. Diego Nunez taking over the 56 LMR car. Franville Bugliotti also in as well. No driver for him to hand over to. There is the patchwork going on, the number 1 Ferrari 296 of Burbrick. But race leader Simone Patrinicola happy to carry on out there. He's got the track all to himself at the moment.
I'd imagine he'll do one more lap, then consider coming in, perhaps maybe 2 if he's got enough time to spare. But
probably
I must
does.
say, yeah, I would say so. He could probably put in another 2 laps as long as he carries on at this speed. Then again, he might not want to risk it and come in maybe in the next lap. Or after this one, this could be his in lap. We'll have to wait and see, but we'll keep our eyes peeled on it. Patrinicola remaining out, and we got Nunez jumping in for Peter Furti now, the Brazilian pairing, swapping over in the Pro-Am class. Franvel Bugliotti now making his way out on track. There is Burbrick Martini as well, who rejoins the fold. Now remember, stops have already been applied. Nunez, in accordance to our current timing screen, the highest of those that have stopped. And Davide Larini further back as well. Franvel Bugliotti seen as long in further back. So Burbrick Martini with a little bit of closing up to do as well further back. But all eyes will be on Simone Patrinicola to see where he comes in and whether we see any major changes. But given the fact that he's advanced such a huge amount of time, it's going to certainly pay dividends for him when he does come in for his stop. More coming in. We have Peroni as well as H. De Mello. 2 Porsches coming in for their stops.
Yep, the 54 AB Motors car and H. De Mello, yesterday's AM race winner, and he's going to be stationary for an additional 20 seconds out there. But of course, no driver change for him to have to do. So check the pressures, make sure everything's good. Then he'll be underway after 85 seconds of total stationary time. Antoine Burbrick came out just in front of Paul Meyer, but Meyer's now made that place up over Burbrick. And so that should be top 10 overall, roughly, when we get everyone through the pit lane. Also, now Nico van Dierendonk has come in the 57 Q1 track racing car. Nathan Braun's taking that one over. They lost out on the win yesterday after contact with Franville Bugliotti. And, of course, that's very important in terms of their AM Championship. They came here 3rd in the standings after a victory in Spa-Francorchamps. But needing to close up a little bit on those in front of them because they are starting to just lose that grip on the title fight. And, of course, after this race, we'll be halfway through the season already. The GT Cup Europe won't be joining us. The rest of the GT Sport organisation in Budapest in a few weeks' time. They'll be back out in July at Circuit Paul Ricard.
It's basically a break after a triple header, basically. Then we move onwards after the International GT Open. GT Sport stops at Hungaroring. Of course, like you so rightly say, GT Cup will not be present for that one. It will be Paul Ricard the next round for this. Sebastian Fortuna and Cosimo Papi swapping out. Of course, Papi, the victim of the spin, we believe, earlier on after coming in close contact with Antoine Burbrick Martini. Now watches Simone Patrinicola. Now, surely You'd imagine maybe he'll be questioning whether to come in this lap. I would imagine he will, because we've only got 2 minutes left here at this point. So all eyes on the prize here for Simone Patrinicola. They'll need a good stop to further rubber stamp their position at the head of the order. There's a lot at stake here in this particular race. And he'll be handing over as well to his teammate Luca De Marchi in the 80 car. They will not be serving any handicap, so they are in a prime position right now, Patrinicola and Mertel Ferrari.
Yeah, they served 5 seconds that they had gathered up yesterday, but now into the pits comes race leader Simone Patrinicola. So you'd imagine that Fabio Babini, Pietro Martin, Dieter Schweppes and Goncalo Fernandez will be not too far behind. And indeed they are. They all flood in, the top 5 cars that are yet to stop in this race. And so it is now Luca De Marchi climbing aboard that car. And Davide Scanicchio will take over from Fabio Babini. That's the lead in Pro-Am, remember. The car they're fighting is Diego Nunes in the 56 LMR car. Diego Nunes is the silver in that 56. So it is advantage LMR in terms of the raw pace. And the next car they have to worry about is the number 19, Manuel Canizares from Mertal Motorsport. Ludovico Longoni, of course, taking over from Pietro Armani, the former Clio Cup Series racer. As circulating here is Ian Rodriguez, the Guatemalan, out there on the circuit. The car that was spun round at the start of the race, and Luca Franca has been trying to get back up the order. And at the moment, Rodriguez is ahead of some of the cars he was battling, but behind the Ebby Motors car and the car that's second in AM as well, Franville Bugliotti. Out onto the track comes Luca De Marchi, the driver change window officially closing. Out comes Scanicchio, out comes Longoni. Of course, Scanicchio behind Longoni there because he was taking 15 seconds of additional handicap. And is that Diego Nunes has just gone through? So that's a change for the lead in Pro-Am after the driver change window.
It was technically, of course, the net leader out on track because he was the highest driver that had confirmed the pit stops. But now we're seeing them all thoroughfare their way out. To Marchi now with the confirmed lead of the race at the moment with Longoni. Zaynan Nunes now making his way down the straight this time around. Now, of course, he's starting to move up on Zaynan at this point, coming through towards turn 6. Of course, Zaynan coming in after Goncalo Fernandez did the opening stint. That is the car that, of course, won the opening race at Spa. And looking to bring home yet again big points here for the silver class pairing. But Nunes is going to be digging a little bit deeper, of course. The Brazilians who are looking also to lay claim to some big points. And, of course, also leading the Pro-Am class at this point ahead of Davide Scanicchio, who has just taken over from Fabio Babini's early stint that saw him maintain second place. So
this would be their first class win of the season if they're able to pull this off. And in fact, he's looking very racy against Lars Zaynan as well. So it could yet be an overall podium for the LMR squad, which would be quite something. And something the sister car managed to do at the opening meeting in Portimao. But that would mean both cars have been on the overall podium at some point in the year, which would be quite extraordinary. So Lars Zaynan in the silver class Q1 track racing car, the Belgian driver, has got his hands full for the next 19 minutes. So there is Ludovico Longoni. He's 9.2 seconds behind Luca De Marchi, the race leader. The number 80 Mertel car continues to lead with ZRS Motorsport, the car that started on pole position, in second.
Yeah, and Diego Nunes has got form in single-seater cars dating back to 2009, competed in the GP2 Series Championship, which is, of course, the old rendition of the essentially the Formula 2 Championship that we know today. And achieved one podium back then as well, also competing in F3000 Italy in 2007, coming second in that championship. And since then, obviously, 2021, well, from 2016, Porsche Endurance Series, GT Sprint Spec Edition then in 2020, finishing second in AM. And now giving Lars Zaynan a bit of a headache here and a hard time over that P3 overall, which could very easily fall into Nunez's hands on top of the Pro-Am lead that they currently hold.
Serial stock car Brazil racer, but more recently in TCR South America, now joining us in GT Cup. Of course, Diego Nunez, our Pro-Am leader, and fighting for the overall podium here with the car that was well placed to move ahead in the championship after dramas for their title rivals in race 1 yesterday. This is Ian Rodriguez now on the back of Leandro Martins. We've had a change for the lead in AM as well, by the way, because Franville Bugliotti now leads that one after the 20 seconds of handicap for the 911, which is the car just in front of us, the Leandro Martins car, which Rodriguez is chasing here.
Only 3/10 behind, hovering all over the back of Leandro Martins for LMR Motorsports, of course. Dieter Schwepp's doing the initial stint, and Stina's Longin now has popped ahead of Fortuna, as has Paul Meyer, incidentally, as well. Now, that's whether that's an issue for Fortuna, I'm not quite sure, but Meyer now up into 11th. Anyway, here comes now Rodriguez at the inside of Martins, and that was very cool, calm and comfortable coming through out of turn 2 and turn 3. The Fimes team once again lift themselves higher up inside this top 10. Now up into 8th now as Leandro Martins looks to put the power down on his throttle inside his own Porsche. Now look to stretch down through towards turn 6.
Paul Meyer closing in on Stina's Longin for the Pro-Am podium, which would be 3rd in a class. Stina's Longin is the silver in that class, as Martins had a look at retaking Ian Rodriguez there, but nothing doing at the hairpin. But yes, Stina's Longin is the pro aboard that car, but we know how quick Paul Meyer has been, and that would be something for that car that, as we see the replay of the move from Ian Rodriguez, that would be truly something to come up from the back of the grid after missing qualifying and taking a Pro-Am podium, especially considering they were taking 10 seconds of handicap, additional handicap in the pit stop as well. Battle for 3rd here continues with 16 minutes to go. Zaynan continues to hold off Nunez.
Yeah, certainly does. That could yet continue right through for the remaining 15 or so minutes, but Nunez will surely hunt for an avenue. But look at this now, they're being drawn into the scrap further back of Paul Meyer. Stina's Longin now on the tail of Leandro Martins. Of course, we saw Rodriguez get past for that 8th place, but now we've got a couple of other cars now. Of course, the battle over P10 now becomes a battle over P9. A look up the inside, a warning shot fired from Paul Meyer this time. Car number 7 for Burgers Motorsport now, as they now stretch down through towards turn 2. And obviously feeling the threat, Longin looking to go up the inside this time of Leandro Martins as well, looking to carry through the pace as well as Paul Meyer. Doesn't want to really get disconnected here from Stina's Longin, and the switchback, the up and under here from Paul Meyer on the LMR Motorsport Porsche as he looks to sweep down the inside through turn 5. And now turn 6 to come. Now needs to try and gather the delta back again on the Stina's Longin car that sits in front of him as they burst down through towards turn 6. Later on the brakes there from Paul Meyer, and that immediately brings him up to speed with the Porsche that is currently sat in front of him here.
Yeah, so he's back on the tail of his class rival. 3rd in Pro-Am being disputed here between Stina's Longin and Paul Meyer. Longin goes defensive, he runs out wide on the exit of turn 8, and Paul Meyer gets up the inside and chops across the front of the Q1 track racing car, and the Hans Weiss Motorsports run Burgers team Porsche moves up to 3rd from the back of the grid.
A truly monumental drive so far, and I've got to give credit to Laura van den Hengel for the opening stint as well, for moving the car where she needed it to be, essentially leaving the car in a good position for Paul Meyer to now just kind of machete his way through the field as such, really, and has done a great job of doing that. Now sat inside this top 10 overall, and 9th place to be exact, and also 3rd in Pro-Am. That is truly fantastic effort here. So now once again we see the battle further up in P3 overall continue. Of course, Diego Nunez still in control of the 56 Porsche that is still hunting down after Lars Zaynan over 3rd place as they whip around turn 6. Well, round turn 5 in towards turn 6 as they go heavy onto the brakes. And taking the right hander, they just seem to be an equally matched pairing to Lars Zaynan and Diego Nunez right now.
Yeah, the lap times, or the sector times, have been pretty even. Last time around, it was 3/10 in favor of Diego Nunes. As he continues to put Zanen under pressure. They could have their third podium finish of the day after the Carrera Cup Benelux results alluded to earlier for Q1 track racing. And once again, it's 3 different teams fighting for the overall podium at the moment. In fact, it's 5 different teams represented in the top 5. It's Mertel, ZRS, Q1, LMR, and Tsunami, all in the top 5. And of course, 2 different types of machines there as well, with the Ferrari 296 Challenge leading the way. This is Davide Larini with very close company in Rodriguez. No, actually, sorry, that is Davide Scanicchio. So that's Larini moving past Scanicchio for 5th, and Vil Bugliotti moving ahead of him as well. So changes for 5th, 6th, and 7th. Good job I got that stat in just then as well, because Mertel's just ruined it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Obviously, with Larini getting in the places that he did, it's now 5th place going his way. Ferrari are looking good value at the moment, as are Mertel, for a first win of the season in the overall side of things. Obviously, Demarchi now in first as it stands, with a 14.7 gap to Longoni in second place. Lars Zane in third. Davide Larini starting to creep closer and closer to see, with still a mammoth of time to find, though. 9.7. It's now flickered out to 9.9 just due to the mere scrapping that they've had to certainly lay down, trying to gain these higher positions. Now Larini stretches down in towards the hairpin at turn 6, beckoning his way down through towards the middle sector once again. And obviously Larini coming from Formula 1 stock historically. His father, one of the former greats, Nicola Larini, racing in the championship, and now Porsche machinery here for Davide. Now watch them come down in towards turn 9 and turn 10 once again. Franvel Bugliotti, though, still the first place AM driver at the moment, and he'll be absolutely thrilled with that. That is the fight that he's going to be most concerned with, as we now take a look to the front with the Mertel team. They're all crowded around watching it all unfold.
Oh, he's still there.
He is still there. We just kind of left him to it, really.
You wouldn't know, would you?
No.
Quietly going about his business. Out there in the lead by 15 seconds now.
There is no one around him.
This is the performance we expected from this car all season long, and
I find it amazing to think that we're only just about on course to celebrate a first win for Ferrari overall. I just can't. Well, instantly, yeah. Oh,
second in 3 races.
Do apologise, yeah, second actually for Luca Demarchi, and the second in 3. I do apologise. Demarchi absolutely right. Of course, a winner prior, but I mean, at the same time, perhaps more should have been in the offing, especially when we consider
100%,
we consider the likes of Matteo Lovisi, Davide Larini as well, a fantastic pairing that, of course, we saw in the past. I mean, Lovisi gave us a good show last year when contesting with the likes of Ivan Velasco, and also, by extension, Luca Ludwig as well. Of course, Velasco was the one going for the title come the end of the season due to the Ferrari Challenge commitments that Ludwig was obviously looking to harness. But, you know, this is the factors at play. And obviously, with Demarchi in this prime position, a second win is more than likely on the cards here.
See the progress there. Paul Meyer up 13 places. Franvel Bugliotti up 6. Lars Zanen up 8 places as well. That car started outside the top 10. Remember, but for every high flyer, there's an equally low faller. Martins, Burbrick, Canizares, DeMello, and Brawns, and Stefano Zerbi as well, all falling down 5 places from their starting positions. Now 16 seconds is the deficit between Ludovico Longoni and Luca Demarchi, and actually Lars Zanen and Diego Nunes are closing in on Longoni there. So this could very quickly become a battle for second place in this race. ZRS Motorsports podium is not guaranteed as yet.
No, and if we look at the last lap as well, it was 1.7 to the good for Lars Zanen. So the fact that we've got 8 minutes left, this could be a very academic scenario. And Paul Meyer now on the banner. This is going to be an interesting fight, because we've got Ian Rodriguez, the current championship leader overall, now meeting Paul Meyer, of course, in the Burgers Motorsport machine that is contesting for the Pro-Am title.
Up until yesterday was leading the Pro-Am championship.
Yeah, and this is certainly a pair of cars that we've seen come in close quarter already before. Now, you'd expect on the face of it that Paul Meyer will be the faster driver in this exchange. So we'll see how Ian Rodriguez can cope with this as they now come around turn 5. Paul Meyer unleashing the power in behind that Porsche, stretching down through towards the hairpin at turn 6. And still remaining where he is right now, but this is going to continue right through to the bitter end. I am sure Ian Rodriguez is going to have his wits about him here. Of course, this is more of a loss if you are Rodriguez as opposed to Paul Meyer.
I would call this a meaty battle.
This is going to be a meaty battle.
A meaty battle, but with some buns either side of it. No, of course, Burgers.
Trying to describe a burger.
Burgers is it's a race trailer supplier. So if you go and see their awning, you'll find a prime example of their product out there. And an extra 5 horsepower for Paul Meyer. They're flashing the lights to Ian Rodriguez.
Yeah, and on top of that, obviously, in the closing lap, I mean, they could still catch Davide Scaniccio as well. It's not out of the question. I mean, Scaniccio is 2.6 ahead of Rodriguez at the moment.
If anything, they're probably working together a little bit here to try and
make
sure they close down Scaniccio, who is the bronze driver aboard that car. So in theory, these two cars should be quicker, and then they can deal with their squabble a little bit later on.
Because it might not just be any old podium here for Paul Meyer. It might not just be a third. It might be a second place, should he be able to manufacture this in his favour. But coming down in towards turn 1, still on the tail of Ian Rodriguez. Very minute gaps now as Rodriguez goes really defensive on the run down through towards turn 2. A look to the outside.
Forget what I just said, George.
Yeah, no, this is a straight fight here at this point. Coming out of turn 2 through turn 3, and Meyer, you'd expect getting them better momentum. He's also going to have the benefit of slipstream on the run down around turn 5 at Parabolica. And now down towards turn 6 of the heavy braking zone at the end of the straight. Here we go again. Around the outside here for the Burgers Motorsport Porsche now as it looks to go late on the brakes. Paul Meyer seemingly going later on the brakes than Rodriguez is. But Rodriguez managing to position the car in all the right places, but that's not going to deter Meyer one bit, who will be quite happy to extend this tussle all the way down towards turn 9. Again, a twinkle of the lights here for the sister Porsche. Of course, this is Fime's team versus Burgers at this stage, but Rodriguez proving that he is, well, more than enough behind him to keep, well, Paul Meyer at bay. This is going to be one tasty battle to take us through for the rest of the race.
Little twitch there from Meyer as he tried to get the power down through turns 10 and 11. Of course, this is giving Scaniccio a little bit of reprieve if they continue to squabble. It's now just 1.3 seconds between these two cars and Scaniccio. And of course, for Paul Meyer, that is the car he's more focused on for second place in the Pro-Am category. Heading through the third sector again, just over 5 minutes left on the clock, so probably 3 laps remaining. Demachi well clear, 17 seconds or so clear of the rest of the field as that battle comes down the start-finish straight. Paul Meyer looking to the inside. You're never going to get up the inside of Ian Rodriguez there as they both take a healthy amount of curb.
Yeah, I think just giving him an opportunity to second guess, really, just firing that warning shot. But the important factor is they've caught up in the process of all this to Davide Scaniccio. So the Pro-Am second place battle is now going to be under full swing here with a silver car belonging to Ian Rodriguez kind of staggered in between. So what was a 2-car fight will now very truly be a 3-car scrap now on the run down through towards turn 6. Scaniccio, will he forego the place this time? Rodriguez, I'm sure, would love to put a car in between him and Paul Meyer in terms of the overall point standing, but Paul Meyer seemingly not just going to take one, he's going to take Pro-Am second, and now in the process look to chase after Ian Rodriguez on the run down through towards turn 9, and of course turn 10, swapping all over as they make their way over the curbs. Will he go down the inside on the run down through towards turn 9? Not quite. But in the initial, the Pro-Am battle, that was successful. It's P2 in Pro-Am for Paul Meyer.
7th and 8th overall for the pair of them now. And of course, for Rodriguez, he's fighting for those overall honours. That's where his points come from.
Yeah.
Paul Meyer, yes, they're doing quite well in terms of the overall standings, but the Pro-Am fight is really where his main concern should be at, unless he feels like he's being held up, which he clearly does, side by side in the Sachs curve. Quite difficult to fit 2 cars through there, and Rodriguez just manages to survive. Now a dive on the inside from Paul Meyer. Rodriguez has to leave him some space around the outside, goes off the circuit, but Paul Meyer with a beautiful move to take 7th position overall, and now starting to pull clear.
He's quite the maestro, here's Paul Meyer. And again, a majestic move
Maestro.
It was a maestro. That's what it was, coming through the final corner. Brilliant from Paul Meyer. And I'm sure there'll be many more to come through the course of this season, certainly based on what we've seen already this campaign. Another bunch of points going in their Pro-Am battle as well. I'm sure Laura van den Hengel's absolutely thrilled with that. The battle for second place ongoing as well, as we watch Lars Zanen on the tail of Ludovico Longoni in the battle for overall second place. And Diego Nunes, don't discount him, because he's also in this, only 7 tenths behind. The only reason things have slightly got disconnected, I'd imagine, is because Zanen has got bountiful levels of slipstream off the back of Longoni, coming down through out of turn 5 through towards turn 6. So Longoni 17.1 now behind Demarchi. Demarchi is well clear at the moment. The win is in the palm of his hands. He's got 2 hands on it for now. I suppose maybe 1 3/4 we'll call it right now at this stage. But as they now creep down through towards Sachs Corner, here comes Longoni. Zanen still remains behind. 2 minutes and 20 to go. In the next lap, there will be a call out for the final lap, you'd fathom. Question is, can Longoni hold off the 2 cars that certainly seem Bountiful's quicker than he does right now?
2 laps to go then in race 2 in round 3 of the championship here in Hockenheim. Ludovico Longoni leads the battle for second place over the timing line for ZRS Motorsport, ahead of Lars Zanen for Q1 Track Racing, and the Pro-Am leader Diego Nunes waiting in the wings to see if he can pounce for an overall podium spot. Longoni in his first season racing Porsche Cup machinery as Franville Bugliotti moves past Davide Larini. Is that a problem on the number 83 Mertel car? Certainly not on the exit of the corner, but it's side by side for second now with Lars Zanen. Pulls out to the outside. He'll have a slightly tighter run around the Parabolica, but when they get to the hairpin, he'll have to go the long way round. He'll have to try and outbrake him on the outside. It's ZRS Motorsport versus Q1 Track Racing, breaking down towards the hairpin. Slippery surface flag is being shown there, but it is just about Longoni. He manages to hold on to the place as they exit the hairpin.
Yeah, great defensive effort from Ludovico Longoni, but the cards, the deck is still stacked against him right now as Q1 now go on a mission to once again add yet another car into the top end fight. This 22 has been holding position in second place here for ZRS for a good deal of time, because Pietro Armani, the one who put it in this position essentially in the opening stint after a decent qualifying performance. Of course, now Longoni behind the wheel, a man who's competed in the Clio Cup Europe as of last year and the year prior. Also Clio Cup Italy back in 2023. As now we watch as Zanen starts asking again major questions. Nunes has now gathered himself and also come more and more so into this top end fray. Overall podium on the offing. Of course, Nunes currently stood off it. Needs to try and dig a little deeper in order to disrupt this silver battle that is ongoing right now. Regardless, Nunes will come away with a Pro-Am victory. Should it stay like this, Burbrick Martini moves into 10th. But I'd imagine, on Nunes' mind, I would love a pop at an overall podium this weekend.
I'm sure he would. 1 lap to go then. Luca Demarchi. Oh no, it is problems for Mertel, the car that was on the podium yesterday. The 83 car of Davide Larini grinding to a halt here, or very slowly limping back to the pits at the very least. That is such a shame for them after their first podium of the season yesterday. But meanwhile, the sister car, the number 80 Ferrari 296 Challenge, well on his way, 16 seconds clear. The question is, who's going to be joining him on the podium? Still it is Longoni who leads that battle for second.
Yeah, still is at the moment keeping Longoni's keeping Zanen and Nunes at bay. They're still, though, very tight. De Mello has managed to move ahead of Larini as well. The others are following suit. Fortuna Lavati, he's going to topple down the order on his way to the pit lane. But it's Luca Demarchi here in the final sector now, coming out of Mobile 1. He'll fly down through towards Sachs. Brilliant performance, Chris Stevens, and 16.1 clear, or 15.1 I should say, of Longoni.
It's been an absolutely dominant performance from this Mertel crew, like Luca Ludwig and Ivan Velasco of old. But now, for the second time in 3 races, it will be the number 80 Mertel Motorsport Ferrari 296 Challenge of Luca Demarchi that meets the checkered flag, sharing the car with Simone Patrinicola. It is victory again as Miriam Messerschmidt, the team manager, hugs the crew. Oh, Lars Zanen getting it all sideways, trying to beat Ludovico Longoni to the line. But it's ZRS Motorsport who takes second place with Longoni and Pietro Armani after starting from pole position. a heck of a drive from Q1 Track Racing as Lars Zanen and Goncalo Fernandez move up from 11th on the grid to the podium. Diego Nunes takes LMR Motorsports' first Pro-Am victory of the season alongside Peter Furter. And Franville Bugliotti are also on the top step for the second time this season in AM.
Yeah, brilliant. Winning AM driver once again. It's back-to-back race 2 victories at Hockenheimring for Mertel Motorsport. Obviously, Ludwig and Ivan Velasco doing it last year after achieving a pole position. They achieved pole twice last year as well, in fact. But Demarchi bringing it home after a fantastic, gallant opening stint from Simone Patrinicola. They had no handicap to serve. They made the most of the opportunity and brought the car home exactly in the fashion they needed to. Longoni was able to hold on as well for ZRS against the encroaching Q1 of Zanen as well down in third. Diego Nunes finishing a brilliant Pro-Am win for him as well, down in fourth overall. Franville Bugliotti with an AM victory of his own, 1.1 off the back of Nunes to boot. And Paul Meyer, we've got to give credit to Burgers Motorsport from the obscurity of not being able to take part in qualifying. Huge applause here for the German Mertel Motorsport team winning on home soil for a second year running.
Oh, that's great to hear. Obviously, all the fans taking shelter in the shade of the grandstand. Didn't think we'd say that this morning, but here are the results then from race 2 in Hockenheim. It is Mertel Motorsports number 80 that takes a dominant victory ahead of ZRS Motorsports number 22. Q1 Track Racing completing the podium. It's LMR Motorsports' first Pro-Am victory in GT Cup Europe for Diego Nunes and Peter Furter, and Franville Bugliotti for the second time this season on the top step of the AM podium. Paul Meyer and Laura van den Hengel from the back of the grid to 6th overall and second in the Pro-Am category ahead of Luca Franco and Ian Rodriguez, the championship leaders, being spun round at the first corner. Nicholas Eilens and Stinus Longen nabbing the Pro-Am podium away from Davide Scanicchio in the end. Antoine Berber completing the top 10. And then Leandro Martins and Dieter Schwepp second again in the AM category once again this weekend. Giacomo Gibergia is second for the GDL crew in AM, or third in AM, I should say, ahead of H. DeMello after that. 22nd handicap, limiting him to 4th in the AM category. Further down, we had late dramas for Davide Larini. He just managed to make the checkered flag, but a lap down. And Stefano Zerbi was the last car. We started with 22, and despite everything, we finished with 22, just. Technically making the checkered flag was Manuel Canizares and Davide Larini pitting on the final lap. But the celebration's well underway in Parc Ferme for Mertel Motorsport. It's victory on home soil, and this will be very heavily celebrated with the photos and the team enjoying this moment for Luca Demarchi and Simone Patrinicola.
Of course, Mertel with a catalyst for bringing Ferrari into the GT Cup Europe Championship, and since then they've enjoyed plentiful success, bountiful levels of success, of course, with Velasco being a champion last year, and of course Velasco the only driver, one of the few drivers in fact, to return with multiple race wins. You think back to the likes of Jan Larison as well, the one of the great Porsche drivers in this championship that has returned. But let's go through the top 3, Chris.
Lars Zanen and Goncalo Fernandez third for Q1 Track Racing, once again on the podium for the Belgian outfit. ZRS Motorsports, Pietro Armani and Ludovico Longoni started on pole position. They took second place after a tight battle with Q1 Track Racing, but for the second time in 3 races and only their second points finish of the season, Simone Patrinicola and Luca Demarchi in the number 80 Mertel Motorsport Ferrari. They're with Alfredo. Well, Simone is having to hurry Luca along there to get him in place with Alfredo. We can hear from them now.
Victory, second win for these guys, Luca Demarchi, Simone Patrinicola. Quiet race today.
Yeah, we managed pretty well. At the moment, we're having, after Spa and this weekend, I will say very bad Saturday, very good Sunday. We hope to rotate these and make Saturday as well good. But the race was good. Apart from the start, it was a little bit tricky. I luckily managed and I went away. And then the pace was good, the car was perfect, the team prepared a very good car and just managed all the stint.
And Luca finished the job, and now it looks good in the championship.
Well, it looks good. It looks like we wanted it. So finally we found a good way to keep going on the season after yesterday, we can say. And well, I just managed everything. Car was perfect. Simone has a great start, so I just bring it back home safely, and then that's it.
Well done, guys. Podium now.
Thank you.
Complimenti.
Highlights then from race 2 in Hockenheim. It was the Ferrari that just managed to get the whole shot into the first corner. They went side by side, but it was the championship leading Feinstein Porsche that went around at the first corner. Also dramas for Q1 Track Racing's Amcar of Nico van Dierendonk. Also dramas for Ebby Motors down at the hairpin as well. They were pitched round by Antoine Berberich. More dramas as positions changed places down into turn 2 with Fabio Barbini making his way up the order. After a great start to the race from Simone Patrinicola, he handed the number 80 Ferrari over to Luca Di Marchi. Ian Rodriguez made up progress in the second part of the race, moving past Leandro Martins, recovering after that turn 1 spin, while Di Marchi continued to build a lead out front. Matteo Lovisi battling away with Davide Scanicchio and Franville Bugliotti. Sadly, that number 83 car would expire before the end of the race. Paul Meyer on a mission, first of all taking a Pro-Am podium position and also muscling his way through on the championship leader. But for the second time in 3 races, it was Luca Di Marchi and Simone Patrinicola victorious for the Mertel Motorsport crew, and it was a home victory for the German squad based in Nuremberg. And now to the podium then for Lars Zanen and Goncalo Fernandez. It is only their second time on the podium this season. The other time was the victory in race 1 at Spa. That just sounds so surprising to say for the team that has dominated the championship for so long. Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani, their 3rd podium appearance of the season. And for the second time in 3 races, it's Mertel Motorsport. And it's Miriam Messerschmidt, the team manager, who joins them on the podium as well. Here's the German national anthem. Well, what a day for Mertel Motorsport. Home victory for the Ferrari dealership. The Michelin representative handed the 3rd place trophies to Lars Zanen and Carlo Fernandez. The rally convert who's taken to circuit racing like a duck to water. Another podium for Longoni and Armani. They close up a little bit on Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca, but they still have a very healthy lead in the overall championship. But a big moment here for the Italian pairing in the German run car. Miriam Messerschmidt taking the team's representative trophy as well. Great day for the team.
Yeah, brilliant day for Mertel, brilliant day for Ferrari. Their 2nd win now of the season. And I'm sure there'll be many more in the offing. Obviously, they need to try and get their points closer, obviously, with the likes of Franca and Rodriguez. But this is a nice way to certainly bring it closer. But those trophies will find their way, I'm sure, into the Mertel cabinet, that's for sure. And the champagne being sprayed, of course, no concerns about getting the race suits dampened by champagne, given the fact that they'll be shoved in the washing machine, I'd imagine, pretty quickly as we close out Hockenheimring for this season in the GT Cup Europe Championship. But it's going to be a very compelling period. Now we're going to take a break away, obviously not going to Hungaroring like the International GT Open and, of course, the Euro Formula Open Championship. We will, of course, be heading to Paul Ricard next, so a little break in between now and then.
Now
It's,
that is much more what we wanted to see. The
Of course.
smiles, the
More
joke
smiles.
between Paul Meyer and Laura van den Hengel, who was
absolutely.
beside herself yesterday
Yeah,
at the mistake
devastated,
she
honestly.
had made.
Yeah.
And just a wonderful result. That is how you bounce back.
Yeah, from obscurity, absolutely right. Laura van den Hengel will be absolutely delighted with that. I mean, you know, bringing yourself into a position where you finish second in class after the car was in a situation of disrepair for the second time in a season, of course, going from, in fact, it would further the first time, if you remember, of course, they had the first car, which came to a shuddering end after race 2 at the very beginning at Portimao. And now with the new chassis that was immediately damaged here as well. But she's come back brilliantly as Laura van den Hengel, and a brilliant first stint as well. But it's Nunes and Furter with the victories. Longin and Salins, we welcome them back. Third place is the result they claim in Pro-Am.
It's their third podium of the season in the Q1 track racing car. Of course, Paul Meyer and Laura van den Hengel at this point, no stranger to the podium, but from the back of the grid. It's the first time they've stood on the podium and not on the top step, but a great result as Paul Meyer heads to the Nürburgring 24 hours in a couple of weeks' time. But for the first time, it's LMR Motorsport on the top step of the Pro-Am podium. New team to GT Cup, the Leandro Martins owned outfit. Diego Nunes and Peter Furter on the top step after a couple of podium finishes in Portimao and Spa, now on the top step.
Yeah, champagne once again being sprayed, and excited to see what Furter and Nunes can do going forward as well. Obviously, Longin and Salins, a combination that has been successful many times in the past. Certainly not their easiest season, their easiest campaign. This year they faced largely stiffer competition, I would say, this campaign. But we'll now take a trip to Am Central with Franvel Bugliotti registering a win this time around to close out Hockenheimring. He's going to be joined, though, by Leandro Martins, Dieter Schweppes and Giacomo Giabergia down in Am third as well. But managing to beat the Q1s to the punch here, Franvel Bugliotti, and bring home a big result for himself.
A former Lotus Cup driver, Giacomo Giabergia, making it a double GDL podium. And double GDL victory as well in the AM category after HMLO's success yesterday. But it's Leandro Martins and Dieter Schweppes second in the LMR Porsche. 2 podiums for them this weekend and 2 in this race after the Pro-Am victory, of course. But it is Franvel Bugliotti, the Argentinian racer, former touring car racer, and Formula Renault racer in Argentina as well, with victory for the second time this season after race 2 in Portimao. It's his third appearance on the podium as well this year as they pose for the photographs. 2 GDL cars on the podium there with Gianluca Giberia, the Italian, joining Phil Bugliotti up there on the top step. GT Cup Europe takes a short break before we come back at Circuits Paul Ricard. We'll see you on the 19th of July.